Hello! So I know it's pretty uncharacteristic for me to do back-to-back uploads like this and do more laid-back content, period. It's not going to be a regular thing, I promise. I'm only doing it this time because it's the bad guys. So the way that I'm going to go about this is by watching the trailer once, because realistically my initial reaction is probably going to be too embarrassing and incomprehensible for a video. And then I'm gonna watch it for a second time where I give my general thoughts and impressions as I go along. So let's get started.
A few moments later.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts. Sharky! Man, okay. I'm gonna try and be calm for this second run through. Breathe.
We were pretty good.
Okay, so one of the things that I notice right off the bat is the fact that based on these opening shots, you can already tell that this one's going to be on a much larger scale than the first film. The easiest way that I think I can explain it is sometimes when it comes to sequels, making the first film feel smaller is the mark of how well the additions to the world building are, whether it be a new location, new characters, all that kind of stuff. And I think this shot right here of Wolf hang gliding and you can see the entire city, I gotta say that's my favorite shot in the entire trailer because it lets us know right off the bat what we're getting into and that this is going to be a much bigger film. I mean, you can already sort of tell that based on the bit in the opening where it says trailer starts now and they're jumping on the rocket ship. But even so, this one does it in a way that feels a lot more subtle, and it gets me, if I didn't see that little trailer starts now bit in the opening, I could still already tell that this is going to up the game in a lot of ways.
Showtime.
The dramatic entrances of these guys, they're so on point. The mark of the bad guys' success in the subjective sense as a franchise, in terms of longevity, I very much think that it's gonna be contingent on this movie. What I think a lot of people have to understand is that every bit of spin-off content that we've gotten since the first movie's release, those just being, well, there's Machismo Ruby, and then there's the two holiday specials, the Christmas one and the Halloween one. That being said, because that's all we've gotten of these characters since the first movie, it kind of reveals that they're coming back at a bit of a rough spot, which is why it is so good that we finally got this god tier animation back. Even the haters will acknowledge that the animation, crisp as hell, it's so stylized, the characters are expressive again. Just so we're on the same page here, my opinions on the two holiday specials are not contingent on their animation, because that's just a mark of not having the budget, not being given the resources by Netflix. What you have to understand is that my opinions would mostly remain unchanged overall if they had this same animation. But all I'm saying is, it's nice to see these characters just have so much life in them again. I just love it so much. Now this stood out to me a lot. The 5 years later. The time skip. When I hear people explain their reasoning for why they don't like the first movie, or even just think the first movie is okay, is that they don't think it does anything interesting with the villain protagonist concept. I do some level understand people thinking it's a bit standard, but as for the actual villain protagonist angle, I think it's honestly pretty unique in that regard. And the reason being for that is that the movie doesn't end with them being accepted by society. Marmalade has the whole thing with the meteorite. He's gonna frame the bad guys for doing it, and then he gets caught. So they have the chance to get that adoration from society, but they decide that stopping him is more important. But that comes at a cost, because they decide to turn themselves in. I think it's not only interesting to make it so that they're still struggling to find a place for themselves after the events of the first movie as the good guys because of their pasts. But it also makes narrative sense. It's a natural progression.
Not everyone believes it, but the bad guys went good.
Because given the superficiality of the city and how they're established to take everything at face value, it wouldn't make sense that after all this time, they wouldn't really buy into the idea that they've changed, especially now that it's been 5 years after the fact. And it also is a setup for a pretty good joke.
Big crime nerds.
So you're like the bad girls.
Oh no, YINSED, are you gonna start doing some book talk now?
Oh, dang it! Well, I'm out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
Now, disclaimer. This isn't the Wild Robots. I'm not gonna try and pretend like I'm an expert on the book version of these characters. My history with the bad guys books is that most of them came out when I had more or less aged out of the target demographic, and I didn't really have enough exposure to it at the time for it to really stick with me as much as stuff like Big Nate, which still, to this day, I continue to follow. But I did start reading them after the movie came out. My progress has been slow, but right now I'm on book 9 out of... hold on. 18. Wow. Still going strong. So these three. First of all, their aliases aren't just their species like the main cast. When they're in action, they go by, their names are Kitty, which she introduces herself as, Agent Doom, who is the bird, and Agent Hogwild. Now in my video on the Wild Robot, which y'all should go watch if you haven't already, I talked about how the best book adaptations, and this goes for any book in my opinion, is finding balance between making changes that allow the story to work better in film while keeping its best narrative aspects intact. The story for the bad guys can theoretically work anywhere. It's not a big deal if they don't do the exact same crimes or pull the exact same heist that they do in the book. And the reason I say that is because the first movie is just technically books 1 and 4 combined with a few elements shuffled around. Which is noteworthy here because technically speaking that makes the timing of Hogwild, Kitty, and Doom's introduction align chronologically. I think their first appearance is in, I think it's book 6. If anybody here has also read them and wants to make any corrections, just do it in the comments.
Oh, she is spicy. I like it. Insult me now.
She could not come up with one even if she tried.
We're good now.
I'm not exactly asking.
Again, I really like this as a sequel idea because given their circumstances, it makes sense for the story to still hold on to their past as villains. And even though they're being forced back into it, a life of crime, I do think it's gonna make for an interesting internal conflict for Wolf specifically, since his thing has always been wanting to be accepted by society more so than the others. See what I mean, y'all? The bad guys have layers. Diane. Let's be clear, I am not a Diane simp. More power to the people in my audience who are, though. I know there's a lot of y'all. I bet y'all are wondering where she is. Well, I'm gonna be as vague as possible because I do know the endgame for the new characters in this movie. Diane, in the book series, is connected to them. I won't say how, I don't even know if that's gonna be how they utilize her in this movie, but that's my theory for the time being.
I promise to play you respectfully. Where's the
He's getting his own video. I'm not somebody who normally likes to make promises for videos, but as sure as I am a light-skinned black man, I will give Mr. Shark his own video before the end of 2025. I have one thing that I've been saving for the end that it's a nitpick, not about any of the actual story content that we've seen so far, but it's exclusive to the marketing. I don't love the fact that they're using bad guy again to market the movie.
Duh.
It was kind of clever the first time because you've got the actual title Bad Guys, so it makes sense to use the Billie Eilish song. But I think the combination of general overplay and the fact that they've used it before, I kind of wish they had opted to do something a little bit different this time.
She's my girlfriend.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to this subplot a lot. The only reason that I think it works is because it's Snake. The last of them that you would expect to take in this direction, that's what makes the joke work. And the fact that they're two different species, I guess. See, I don't really mind it here because of what's established to be normalized in this universe in terms of human and animal interactions. Really, though, the wackiness of the bad guys, both in the movies and what I've read of the books, is very much an acquired taste, which is why I 100% why I like it a lot more than the average person. So those are my impressions of the bad guys too. I'm not going to do this for all the trailers, but I did think it would be kind of fun to do a more casual reaction and analysis of this one. Thanks to everyone who's watched all the way through, and I will see you guys in December for the 2024 animation ranking. That's gonna be a long one.